A sudden burst of static filled the airwaves, snapping General Kylos from his thoughts. The grizzled alien leader, known throughout the galaxy for his unyielding resolve, watched as the transmission crackled to life. On the screen before him, a frantic officer, bloodied and battered, struggled to speak. "They're here, sir," the officer gasped. "The humans, they've breached our perimeter." Kylos felt a knot tighten in his chest, a sensation that had become all too familiar over the years. He clenched his mandibles, barely suppressing a growl. "Not humans again," he muttered, his voice thick with exasperation. Beside him, Captain Redhar, a younger, more confident officer, glanced at his superior, puzzled. "General, with all due respect, our fleet is vastly superior. They are just humans." Kylos's eyes narrowed as he turned to face his subordinate. "Never underestimate them, Captain," he warned. "The moment you do, they'll find a way to turn your confidence into your downfall." Redhar nodded, though his skepticism was apparent. The general, however, had no time to dwell on the younger officer's doubts. He quickly issued orders to prepare the fleet for battle, every muscle in his body tensing as he recalled the last encounter with the human forces. It had been a massacre, a brutal, calculated assault that left their advanced warships in flames. Kylos had survived by sheer luck, but the memory of the humans' relentless pursuit still haunted him. Meanwhile, deep within the alien stronghold, Sergeant Jake, Boomer, Thompson moved with practiced ease through the labyrinthine corridors. His team of seasoned operatives followed closely behind, their movements synchronized, silent. They had been dispatched on a covert mission, one that would tip the balance of power in this ongoing war, if they could pull it off. Boomer's comms crackled as he received an update from his forward scout. "We're approaching the target, Sarge. Enemy patrols are thick, but we can make it." "Good," Boomer replied, his voice steady. "Stay sharp. This isn't over until we're out of here in one piece." The squad pressed on, each step bringing them closer to their objective, the alien fleet's primary weapon system, a devastating piece of technology that could obliterate entire planets with a single shot. Their mission was simple: disable the weapon before it could be used against Earth's defenses. As they reached the final corridor, Boomer raised a fist, signaling a halt. His heart pounded in his chest, the weight of their task pressing down on him. He knew that one misstep could spell doom for them all. At the same moment, General Kylos watched the tactical display on the command console, his mind racing. The humans were here, within his stronghold, and his fleet was on the brink of engaging them. But something felt off, an itch at the back of his mind that he couldn't quite place. "Deploy the hunters," Kylos ordered, his voice cold. "I want those humans found. Now." Redhar hesitated. "But sir, what if—" "No more excuses!" Kylos snapped. "We end this now." The tension in the command center was palpable as the fleet moved into position. Kylos's eyes remained fixed on the screen, his jaw clenched. He couldn't afford to lose this battle, not again. As Boomer's team prepared to breach the final chamber, the lights flickered ominously. He exchanged a glance with his second-in-command, Corporal Reed, whose expression mirrored his own. They had come too far to fail now. "On my mark," Boomer whispered, his hand hovering over the detonator. 3, 2, 1, go! The door exploded inward, and the team stormed into the room, weapons raised. But as the smoke cleared, they found themselves facing an unexpected sight, an elite squad of alien hunters, weapons drawn, waiting for them. Boomer's pulse quickened. "It's a trap!" he shouted, diving for cover as the first shots were fired. And so, the battle began, with both sides fully aware that only one would emerge victorious. The room erupted into chaos as plasma bolts ricocheted off the walls, bathing the chamber in a strobe of harsh, blue light. Boomer dove behind a thick, metallic console, barely avoiding a searing blast that scorched the air where he'd been standing. His team scrambled for cover, their training kicking in as they returned fire with precision. "Keep moving!" Boomer shouted over the din, his voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through his veins. "We can't let them pin us down!" Corporal Reed, crouched behind a reinforced pillar, nodded and signaled to the others. The squad split into two groups, flanking the alien hunters who were advancing with lethal intent. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and burning metal, the oppressive heat of battle pressing down on them. Boomer risked a glance around the console, assessing the situation. The alien hunters were formidable, tall, sinewy beings clad in sleek, dark armor that seemed to absorb the light. Their movements were fluid, almost serpentine, and their eyes glowed with a predatory intensity that sent a chill down Boomer's spine. "Reed, we need to take out their leader," Boomer ordered, his voice low but urgent. "It's the only way to break their formation." Reed's gaze followed Boomer's, landing on the hunter who stood at the center of the enemy formation, barking commands in a guttural alien tongue. The leader's armor was adorned with markings that distinguished him from the others, and his movements were swift and precise, coordinating the attack with ruthless efficiency. "Got it," Reed replied, his expression grim. "Cover me." Boomer and the rest of the squad laid down suppressing fire as Reed darted from cover to cover, inching closer to the leader. The hunter's attention was divided, focused on coordinating his forces and directing their assault. Reed capitalized on the distraction, lining up his shot with practiced calm. Just as he was about to pull the trigger, the leader's head snapped toward him, eyes locking onto Reed's position with unnerving speed. The hunter moved like lightning, a blur of motion as he unleashed a barrage of plasma bolts that forced Reed to dive for cover. Boomer cursed under his breath. The alien leader was faster than they'd anticipated, and the situation was spiraling out of control. The tension in the room was palpable, each second ticking by like a countdown to disaster. "Fall back!" Boomer commanded, realizing they needed to regroup. "We're not done yet, but we need a new plan." The squad moved as one, retreating toward the far side of the chamber, their movements disciplined despite the chaos. Boomer's mind raced, searching for a way to turn the tide in their favor. The mission was too critical to fail, but the odds were stacking against them. As they reached the relative safety of a large, fortified barrier, Boomer's calm crackled to life. It was the scout they'd left behind to monitor enemy movements. "Sarge, we've got incoming! Reinforcements, lots of them!" Boomer's heart sank, but he didn't hesitate. "Hold your position," he replied, his voice firm. "We're going to finish this, one way or another." He turned to his team, their faces reflecting the gravity of the situation. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and the enemy was closing in. But Boomer knew that if they didn't succeed, the consequences would be catastrophic. "Get ready," he said, his voice steely. "We're going to hit them where it hurts." As the sound of approaching footsteps grew louder, Boomer felt a surge of determination. The storm was coming, but they would be the ones to weather it, or die trying. The chamber vibrated with the thunderous approach of the alien reinforcements. Boomer clenched his jaw, his mind racing. They were outnumbered, and the odds were growing worse by the second. He could feel the weight of his team's lives pressing on his shoulders. This wasn't just another skirmish. It was a fight for survival. Boomer scanned the room, his eyes locking onto the towering alien leader, who continued to bark orders to his troops. They were methodical, efficient, and utterly ruthless. Boomer knew they needed to disrupt the enemy's momentum, and fast. But how? A flicker of movement caught his eye, an access panel on the far wall, partially concealed by debris. Boomer's thoughts clicked into place. That panel led to the ship's reactor core. If they could overload it, they might have a chance to turn the tables. "Reed," Boomer called out, keeping his voice low. "We need to get to that access panel. It's our only shot." Reed glanced at the panel, then back at Boomer, understanding dawning in his eyes. "You're thinking about blowing the core? That's suicide." Boomer shook his head, determination hardening his expression. "Not if we time it right. We trigger the overload, then get the hell out of here before it blows. It's the only way to take out the leader and his reinforcements in one go." Reed hesitated, the weight of the decision evident in his furrowed brow. But there was no other option. With a sharp nod, he signaled the rest of the team. They would have to move quickly and quietly. Any slip-up could mean the end. The team began their advance, staying low and using the wreckage for cover. Every step was calculated, every breath measured. The alien forces were closing in, but Boomer's squad moved with purpose, inching toward the access panel. The sound of heavy footfalls grew louder, and the tension in the air was almost suffocating. Boomer's heart pounded in his chest, but his mind remained sharp, focused on the task at hand. As they neared the panel, Reed broke off to cover their flank, his weapon at the ready. Boomer reached the panel and quickly began bypassing the security protocols. His fingers moved with practiced precision, sweat beading on his forehead as he worked against the clock. The reactor's interface blinked to life, and Boomer initiated the overload sequence. A countdown appeared on the screen, 5 minutes until detonation. "Done," Boomer whispered, his voice tinged with urgency. "Let's move!" But as they turned to retreat, the alien leader blocked their path, his eyes blazing with fury. He was faster than they'd anticipated, his massive form a blur of motion as he lunged at Boomer. The force of the impact sent Boomer crashing into the wall, the air knocked from his lungs. Reed sprang into action, firing a volley of plasma rounds at the leader, but the alien deflected them with a swift, brutal efficiency. The rest of the team engaged, but it was clear they were outmatched. The leader was relentless, his attacks precise and devastating. Boomer struggled to his feet, gasping for breath as he raised his weapon. They were running out of time. The countdown continued to tick away, each second pushing them closer to the explosion. "Fall back!" Boomer shouted, his voice hoarse. "We can't beat him head on!" The squad began a desperate retreat, firing at the alien leader as they pulled back toward the exit. But the leader was relentless, his eyes burning with a cold, alien hatred. Boomer knew they were out of options, this fight would end one way or another. As they reached the doorway, Boomer glanced back at the countdown, less than a minute left. They had to get out now, or it would be too late. "Move!" Boomer commanded, shoving his team through the door as the alien leader closed in. They sprinted down the corridor, the walls shaking with the rumble of the impending explosion. There was no turning back now. Boomer could feel the heat of the reactor core growing, the air thick with the smell of burning circuitry. The explosion would be catastrophic, wiping out everything in its path, including the alien forces. But as they rounded the final corner, Boomer knew the leader wasn't far behind. They had mere seconds left, but the door to the escape pods was in sight. Victory was within reach, but the price they would pay for it was still unknown. Boomer's heart pounded as he glanced over his shoulder, his eyes locking onto the alien leader for what could be the final time. The countdown reached 0. The roar of the explosion reverberated through the corridor as Boomer and his team stumbled into the escape pod bay, the ground trembling beneath their feet. The blast from the overloaded reactor had torn through the alien warship, flames and debris devouring everything in their path. The countdown had ended, but the fight was far from over. Boomer's breath came in ragged gasps as he slammed the control panel, activating the escape pods. The reinforced door slid open with a hiss, revealing the cramped interior. He motioned for his team to board, but a guttural snarl froze them in their tracks. The alien leader emerged from the smoke and fire, his armor scorched and cracked but his resolve unbroken. His glowing eyes fixed on Boomer with a murderous intensity, and in that moment Boomer knew this battle would end with one of them dead. "Go!" Boomer barked at his team, his voice hoarse but commanding. "Get in the pods and launch!" "That's an order!" Reed hesitated, his eyes flicking between Boomer and the alien leader. But Boomer's unwavering glare left no room for argument. With a reluctant nod, Reed ushered the rest of the squad into the pods. The doors sealed shut with a final, echoing clang, and the pods shot out into space, leaving Boomer alone in the bay. The alien leader took a step forward, each footfall heavy with menace. Boomer raised his weapon, his hand steady despite the adrenaline surging through his veins. They stood on the brink of destruction, the warship crumbling around them, but neither was willing to back down. "You've lost," Boomer growled, his voice low and steady. "Your forces are scattered, your ship's done for. Surrender now, and maybe I'll let you live." The alien leader's response was a guttural roar, his massive form lunging at Boomer with terrifying speed. Boomer fired, the plasma rounds striking the leader's damaged armor, but the alien barely slowed. They collided with bone-jarring force, Boomer's weapon knocked from his grasp as they grappled in the confined space. Boomer's mind raced as he fought, each movement calculated, each strike precise. The alien leader was stronger, but Boomer had one advantage: the knowledge that this fight wasn't just about survival. It was about protecting his team, ensuring their escape. With a surge of strength, Boomer twisted out of the alien's grip, driving his elbow into the leader's cracked helmet. The alien staggered, giving Boomer just enough time to dive for his weapon. He rolled to his feet, plasma rifle aimed squarely at the leader's chest. The alien leader snarled, his eyes narrowing as he realized his defeat was imminent. But before he could make another move, Boomer fired a final, devastating shot. The plasma bolt punched through the alien's weakened armor, sending him crashing to the floor with a heavy thud. Boomer stood over the fallen leader, chest heaving, the weight of victory settling on his shoulders. The warship continued to shake apart, but Boomer allowed himself a brief moment to catch his breath. He had won, but at what cost? Without another glance at the defeated alien, Boomer turned and sprinted toward the remaining escape pod. He launched it just as the warship began to break apart, the pod rocketing away from the fiery wreckage. As he drifted into the void of space, Boomer couldn't help but think of his team, now safe but scattered. The fight was over, but the war was just beginning. Boomer steeled himself for the challenges ahead, knowing that no matter the odds, humanity would endure. It always had.